right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we have got a lively one for you guys. We are talking about Jay and Silent Bob Reboot from Kevin Smith. Of course, we all loved Jay and Silent Bob back in the day, and it's been a while since we've had them in a movie, and they're back. And this has been a interesting release because it came out just with a couple of Fathom Events screenings, and now Kevin Smith is taking it on a road show across the country. Instead of a regular release or going straight to VOD or anything like that, it's just coming to one city at a time. And I'm not sure, as I'm recording this, where it is in the process of release. But wherever it is, I would definitely say go check it out because, especially if you were a fan of the old View Askewniverse from Kevin Smith, it's definitely something worth watching, even if the results are a little on the mixed side. But with me today, we've got two co-hosts. We've got Joe Black and we've got Adam Wells. The two of them had previously joined me on the Three from Hell episode, and we decided to do it again, and we had a great time talking about this one. So I hope you enjoy it. I want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod and join the Facebook group Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. Well, we got a long one coming up, so let's just jump right into it. This is Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. All right, we weren't expecting to have these guys back so soon, but with us again today, we've got Joe Black and Adam Wells. How's it going, guys?
It's going good. Going good. Glad to be back so soon.
Snoochie boochies. Glad to be back.
I like that you're in the spirit already. Yes, we
What
are,
can I
of
say?
course.
I enjoyed it.
We're, of course, talking about Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I think we should, kick this thing off by, first of all, we should actually, I think, say straight up at the top who liked it, who didn't like it. Let's get that out of the way as we're getting into this conversation. Let's start off with you, Adam, because it sounds like you liked it a lot.
I enjoyed it. I guess it had been a while since I'd actually listened to some good Kevin Smith pop culture dialogue.
Mhm.
I mean, the story itself, yeah, it's stupid, like the first one, but I kind of like the second half of the movie a lot. It just had a lot of heart to it, something that we hadn't gotten from Kevin Smith in a while, and I just really enjoyed it. I really
Sure.
enjoyed all the characters and all the throwbacks to the previous movies.
A lot of throwbacks in there. What about you, Joe?
I did not care for it. No.
All right.
No. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. Dogma is the movie that made me realize I wanted to be a filmmaker. I've followed that man's journey for more than 20 years at this point. He's basically made 3 movies now that are just about how much he loves his kid, and so far the first one was the best, Jersey Girl.
I agree. Jersey Girl is a great movie. And for all you haters out there, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, they're gone. They're over with. Get over the hate.
Yeah, and I mean, one of my bucket list movies to see in my lifetime is the original 2.5-hour cut of that movie, which is what I told Kevin when I met him. I Yoga Hosers was more than offensively bad to me. It was irresponsible and insulting to artists, in my opinion. Like I would take it that far. This movie I wouldn't take that far. I would just say that it doesn't work, and that I could feel from minute one that his heart was in the sentiment, but his heart was not in the filmmaking whatsoever. It's the only movie he's done that's poorly edited. It's so choppy that even halfway decent scenes are just killed by how poorly edited it is. It looks like garbage. And I saw it in the double feature with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and that movie is so well directed that like it feels cohesive. It creates a universe with its look, and the score in that movie is really terrific. And this movie was just him wanting to tell his friends how much he loved how much he loved them after he had his heart attack, which that's fine, but you can also do that and care about the craft.
Right. No, and I fall somewhere in between the two of you guys. I did like it, but it really does show like how simple like the whole setup is and how like nothing there is to it. And there's certainly laughs to be had along the way. And I did also watch it with the double feature. Adam, did you watch the double feature?
I did not watch the double feature. I went for the poster,
Mm-hmm.
not for any real reason other than I saw Jay and Silent Bob in the theaters when it came out. While I thought it was funny then, I think this pretty much the same way as you guys feel about this one. It's stupid with no purpose. I just thought
Right.
the second half of this one had so much heart to it. It
Mm-hmm.
to me was better than the first Jay and Silent Bob movie. Not one of
Whoa.
his better movies. Not one of his better movies in general, but better than Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back because I never really thought that was that good of a movie.
Saying that made me clutch my heart like an old Southern woman. I was like, "Oh my lord!" Like, because Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is so well made, and especially, I mean, I've seen it 600,000 times, and I've actually seen it on the big screen just a couple months ago. But seeing it every time I see it, I mean, it's just so well made. Like, it's just so well timed, and even though it is full of all these little throwbacks and references to his earlier work, it just moves at this breakneck pace, and all of it builds to something, and it feels cohesive. This movie just feels like, clunk, 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 clunk. With now,
I did
Mhm.
love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back myself. I think I've told this before, but that's the only movie I've ever watched twice in the theater in one day. On opening day, we went 2 times in a row, and I loved it both times. And
That's
I think I saw it
interesting.
another. I think I saw it another 1 or 2 times after that.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised by it because when I watch the first Jay and Silent Bob movie, I just think of skit after skit after skit, and it just what does it really lead to? Kind of like a second-rate Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Mm.
And it's just joke on top of joke on top of joke, and this movie is no different. The choppiness of the music video feel of the first one, I thought was just it looked like his most rushed and kind of thrown together production.
Nah, go back and watch it again. You should have watched the double feature. I promise it's not.
I like that this conversation is going to be coming from such completely different angles with our three opinions on this movie, and I think that's why it's a great thing that we're doing this one today.
I
We're going to
think I
get into
just
a
hurt
lot.
Joe's soul, but
Yeah, I
No,
know.
no,
I
no.
think he.
Well, David, you said something really interesting. You said Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is the only movie you saw twice in the same day, and I saw it a bunch of times in theater when it came out, and but when I had graduated, the year I graduated film school is the year that Clerks 2 came out, and I had some really awful personal things happening that year. I was just really lost. It was a very painful time in my life, and I wasn't even going to go see Clerks 2 because it was too painful to think about. It hard to explain, but that morning that it came out, my father woke me up, and my father took me to see a movie basically every Friday my entire life. That's why I love film so much. And but he had not seen any of the Jay and Silent Bob movies with me, and it didn't have any interest. But he woke me up that morning. He said, "Come on, we're gonna go see that Clerks movie." He had taken the day off of work so that we could go see the first show of it together.
Mm.
And when I was watching it, and they do the scene where they're rebuilding the quick stop with the Alanis Morissette, you see everything, every part, they rebuilt the quick stop. I it just stirred such an emotion in me watching these two guys reject at the beginning of the movie. They reject the very thing that is their identity, and they spend the whole movie hating on it, and then finally they learn to not only embrace it, but then to take ownership of it and rebuild it in their image. And that message with that song playing, I had the most violent, like, breakdown in the middle of the theater, just sobbing, crying. And at the end of the movie, my dad gave me a, a bunch of cash, and he said, "Just stay." And I watched that movie 5 times that day. And at the end of the last when I went to go see the last time, the manager at the theater was like, "Hey, how many times you seen this?" I said, "5." She said, "Find me after the movie." And then, after the movie got out, I walked out, and she had one of those giant canvas roll-up posters of it.
That rules.
You know,
uh,
and that movie is nothing but, like, throwbacks, and has a lot of heart, as you say. But again, it's a real film, and so I know he has it in him. So this movie
He-
is just kind of
Unlike his
disappointing.
last few movies,
Well,
I'm not
it's a
saying he
real
doesn't
film.
have it in him, and I'm not even putting this as one of his better movies. I'm just only putting it up against that one. Clerks 2 even with my issues towards the end, I do love that movie. Dogma is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Probably one of the smartest movies on religion, with a couple of dick and fart jokes in there.
Sure.
Chasing Amy, great. 2/3 of a movie.
I can't jive with you there, but I love Tusk, so I think Tusk is actually right behind Dogma as like his strongest directing. Like I think that's yeah.
This is all over the place.
Yeah, so we should do some puzzle pieces.
Well, I meant our opinions, but yeah, we should get into some puzzle pieces. Why don't we jump to that? Adam, what do you got for your first one?
I've already mentioned it the first time. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Not as much as maybe the first movie, but again, just this road trip of just sketches upon sketches upon sketches. It does eventually lead somewhere. Does it always make sense? No. But you know what? That's the movie that I think of. It's just, a sketch on top of a sketch on top of a sketch. That's a road trip movie.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the road trip movie. It's the sketch movie. It's the anything goes kind of a movie. And of course, it's very similar to the last one, to Strike Back. And so, of course, they both would probably have that same puzzle piece if we were doing the show back then.
I don't really agree that like Jay and Silent Bob is just Strike Back is sketch upon sketch upon sketch. This one for sure, 100%. I'm right there with you, but I don't think Jay and Bob is like that. With the exception of the going down on the nun at the beginning of their journey, everything that happens to them in that journey feeds into something else that then comes back full circle in the end to tell a complete story where the characters go from A to B. I don't agree with that, but with this one for sure.
All right. Well, what do you have for your first one, Joe?
Yes. I have Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Not only because it's, like a, journey of idiots, but specifically the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan centerpiece of this film really reminded me a lot of the centerpiece in Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Where in this movie, like, it felt very, like, out of nowhere and thrown in and really just seemed like an excuse for him to cast Chris Jericho and to throw shit over onto a bunch of Klansmen. But I felt that, like, it acted as a nice centerpiece, because they saved the kids, and then, it actually felt like an actual plot point, much like an Oh Brother Art Thou. And Oh Brother Art Thou exists as a way to kind of make fun of Klansmen too. It ends with a giant cross falling on him, which I thought was more clever. But yeah, it definitely brought to mind that. I mean, it brought to mind all the Klan scenes that you see in movies, Django and Bad Boys 2.
Yeah, totally. Django as well.
And what was the other one? Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay, which also is just like just another skit they're thrown in to make fun of the white supremacists. And
my father loves.
Damn right, they deserve it.
Yeah, my dad loves those movies, those Harold and Kumar movies. It's funny. They never really did anything for me, but my dad just thinks they're perfect.
I like the sequels a lot. But I do adore the first one. I just thought it was just brilliant.
I feel like I remember the sequels more than the first one for some reason.
Same.
But yeah, I should probably go back and watch those because they seem fun.
I know, but think about the first fast food sponsorship in an R-rated movie. It was White Castle.
I really,
that's true.
I love that they had the Christmas movie. Like, I like that that's what they did with the third one. And I always thought that Jay and Silent Bob should do something like that. And I remember Kevin Smith when he was talking about what did Jay and Silent Bob do after Strike Back, and Jason Mewes was like, "Why don't they like?" No, it was Harvey Weinstein who said, or something like that, who said they should go up against a horror villain like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. That like they should do some kind of Jay and Silent Bob movie like that. And Jason Mewes was really pitching to have a Jay and Silent Bob meet Pinhead from Hellraiser movie.
God.
That would have been.
I think that would be a great idea. But one of the where it would be really good is if they almost revived the Clerks cartoon.
Yes.
And they kind of did that. And by the way, that was a show that should have taken off. That was
hell
nice.
yeah.
It's the greatest show of all time. I swear to God.
Okay, I'm glad we're all on the same page with this because I loved that show so much.
All I'm going to say is Flintstones list. I know it's offensive, but it's hilarious.
My brother and I, we communicate almost exclusively through Clerks cartoon quotes. Like that's kind of the only way we communicate.
That's actually one thing. Real quick before I go into my next piece, when watching in the the double feature, watching Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I forgot how many like quotes and little things that I say on a day-to-day basis that came from that movie. I mean, it is incredibly quotable.
That's true. I called my fiance Boo Boo Kitty Fuck the other night.
Perfect. Well, I will go into my first puzzle piece, which I'm just going to say right up front, I am cheating right now. I normally don't do this on the show, but I am going to use Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as a puzzle piece because, I mean, let's be clear, half of the scenes in this movie, he is on purpose going back and referencing or redoing scenes from the previous movie. And, mostly to, I thought, very funny effect, but it's completely inspired by the movie that came before it.
Yeah, I just don't think that anything he rehashed really worked for me for this one. I I really didn't like what they did with the Justice character. Um one of the things I love so much about Clerks 2 is that he's wearing the Justice hoodie at the end of it. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't forgotten about her. And this movie kind of writes that off, you know. I wanted to see her be a more integral part of the movie because I like that character so much and I liked their dynamic.
The Justice character, it does seem like they kind of like strangely picked up and dropped off in like a weird way that they kind of didn't know how to bring her back, but just wanted to bring her back somehow.
It was either that or scheduling. I guess she couldn't be around long enough to be in the movie.
Maybe.
What else is she doing?
She's actually become a professional poker player.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Good for her.
That brings up a good question because maybe I missed something, and I was going to ask you guys, how would they have ever had sex? That wasn't in the last movie,
Right?
Yeah, I was wondering that also because she goes to jail immediately.
right? And she even says, "You never called, you never came to see me, or anything like that."
Well, she comes and visits him when she's already been in jail. Like at the end of the movie, like she's in the jumpsuit with the cuffs, you know, and you can
Right. So
actually
maybe they did it at the movie theater.
the conjugal visits. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know when they would have had when Will Ferrell would have taken the cuffs off and been like, "All right, you get 3 minutes in the bathroom, 3.5 for good behavior."
That does seem like something that that character would do.
Yeah, where was Marshall, Will, and Holly? Come on now.
That's a good question.
He got too big for his britches.
I don't know.
Where was Chris Rock and Chakaluka King?
Yes.
I thought for sure that's who the director was going to end up being.
No,
Kevin Smith wanted to be Tony Stark.
Yeah, you know, my buddy, it's so funny. My buddy Vincent, he who you should have him on the show sometime. He's pretty incredible. He brought up that he was really excited to see Kevin Smith go back to doing the silent thing, you know, because he's been the big vocal whatever for so long. And then yet the whole third act of the movie, we just get big vocal, you know, arm waving Kevin Smith again.
Oh yeah, we do.
And I also thought Silent Bob was way overdone this time. Like he's so perfect in like Dogma and stuff like that. In this, he's just such a ham. It got annoying.
I can absolutely see that. I gotta say, I don't want to shit on Kevin Smith or anything like that. Like he's made some great movies, but it's like the version of himself that he's playing when he's just Kevin Smith. I don't like that guy. Like, and I don't know if that's what he's like in real life. I never listened to his podcast and I've never seen his shows, but I do not like that character.
He is a soft-spoken, kind person who actually does more listening than talking.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I got to work with him on a movie and a half. And he's a really good dude. It just his interest is not in filmmaking anymore, and like that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Just don't do them anymore then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, clearly his interest is in podcasts. I mean, he even tells you in the movie. Ben Affleck even reminds you how much he loves podcasts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm also just tired of hearing Kevin Smith. I know it's so funny because I'm not, a fan of this movie, just shitting on himself. He always like shits on his movies. And I remember at the premiere for Mandy, he like was moderating the Q&A and he like made a crack at himself about being a terrible filmmaker. And I actually screamed from the audience, fucking stop. Like, his film, opened my eyes to what has been the path of the vast majority of my life. And so for him to like shit on it, I mean, like, dude, I moved 3,000 miles away from my family to come out here and make movies, and you're shitting on the movie that made me do that. fuck you.
Right.
Hate.
No, love. See, it's the opposite. I love it.
Yes, that's how it should be. Well, Adam, what do you got for your next one?
Since we're going with the theme of reboot self-referential, Scream 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty much the same idea. It's acknowledging the previous events and acknowledging that it's doing things differently, that it is somewhat of a reboot and sequel, playing off the original and winking at itself at the same time. Maybe not as, it doesn't break the fourth wall like Jay and Silent Bob do, but very similar ideas.
Sure. Absolutely. I always forget about that movie. I always forget that it like happens, and it's a kind of
really
clever
good.
idea. Yeah.
I think it's really good. I think it's a reboot done right. I will give credit to this movie, though, for being like the whole scene with Ben Affleck about what a reboot is. I was like, that's fucking great. Like, that's
Mhm.
actually a very clear thing to say that makes a lot of sense. And like, maybe filmmakers can start to build off of that. Now, thank you, Kevin, for writing that. Now, if you'd only edited the scene in a way that was coherent, we could have paid attention.
I actually do think that Ben Affleck's moments were some of the best things in the movie.
Easily.
Especially at the end. I may or may not have shed a tear. It was a little sad.
Yeah. Oh, but wait, we were forgetting to mention that Jay and Silent Bob are in one of the Scream films. They're in Scream 3.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They make a
That's
little
right.
cameo.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah. That's
And
my
I
Wes
favorite.
swear, I just don't
Craven-
remember that whole series, I guess.
And Wes Craven, of course, was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yes.
I think that was the
absolutely.
deal. You do my movie, I do yours.
Very, very rarely am I as in love with a character as I was with Parker Posey's character in Scream 3. I was so in love with her when I was a kid. She's so good.
Well, what do you got next, Joe?
The next one I had was Snake Eyes, the De Palma Nicolas Cage film. I was thinking of like how the end of this movie not only takes place at like a big event, and the chaos of the big event is kind of like the whole structure of the third act, which is the same structure as Snake Eyes, the boxing event, the assassination. So the chaos of like that kind of event with that kind of crowd creates the tension, right? Um,
Mhm.
but also like Snake Eyes, I feel like the last minute plot twist with the fucking missiles and the hurricane come out of nowhere and are really poorly staged and stupid, much like what happens at the end of this movie when the Asian girl turns out to be Russian, and for some reason these people cosplayers are actually villains, and then for some reason there's a Silent Bob mechanical suit that functions. Yeah, Snake Eyes.
I actually have not seen Snake Eyes, but it sounds like it goes off the rails like this does.
David, it's definitely your movie. You get to watch Nicolas Cage go over the top as always.
Yeah.
What's not to love about it?
When I saw that for the first time, I was the first half when it was halfway over. I went on I had rented it. I went on Amazon and I just bought it. And then by the end of the movie, I had canceled my order because
It is a good first half.
yeah, it is.
I feel like I need to see it. But I will go ahead with my next puzzle piece. And this one's probably, kind of an obvious, but I was going to go with Deadpool. Because of just the nonstop inside jokes and making fun of itself and making fun of its own universe and about movie making itself and in general and the studios and just everything involved, which of course was stuff that he was already doing with the last Jay and Silent Bob movie. But of course now we're getting to a meta level where it's making fun of itself as a sequel of the previous thing, and I mean, it's just goes completely into that direction. Just how meta the whole thing has gotten with this one.
I don't like the first Deadpool. I like the second one.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Especially for the breaking of the fourth wall jokes and just the, as Kevin Smith would say, the dick and fart jokes.
Yeah. They fill it with lots of dick and fart jokes as well as like the movie making jokes and the movie universe jokes and all that stuff.
What was with the random Matt Damon cameo? Like all the others at the very least felt organic-ish. You know what I mean? That one was just like, here's Loki.
Yeah, they had to get him in somehow, I guess, and they just really couldn't think of anything.
Why? He's dead. He died.
Well, he was explaining that he didn't die, or he somehow got rewarded.
Bullshit.
None of it makes sense. Well, that
And where was God during all this? Where's Alanis Morissette, our Canadian God?
Only referenced a million fucking times. My God.
I mean, she couldn't show up. I mean, she's not dating Ryan Reynolds anymore.
That's true. That would have helped with
What else
your.
she got? What else she got to do?
That would have helped with that
It's a
Deadpool,
connection.
puzzle piece for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
See, that's what this movie needed. It needed some random Ryan Reynolds showing up.
And I think he would have fit quite well.
Oh yeah, if anything, Clerks 2 is a better Deadpool puzzle piece thing because that song that she wrote that I was talking about in Clerks 2 is about Ryan Reynolds.
Which song? What was the song? I haven't seen Clerks 2 since the theater.
It's called Everything. It's like, you see everything, you see every part, you see all my light, and you love my dark. It's a beautiful song.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, you got me to
Good
sing
rendition,
on a
Joe.
podcast. Fuck you.
Yeah, good rendition. I like it. That's
Leave
going to
me
become
alone.
a single pretty soon.
It's beautiful.
You bastards.
All right, what do you got next, Adam?
Dumb and Dumber 2.
Oh God.
But there you go.
Scraping the bottom right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Two morons on the road. Long lost daughter. I'm not going to say hilarity ensues because there was no hilarity in Dumb and Dumber 2.
There was one really brilliant joke when the cat farted out the feathers. That was really funny. You guys don't even remember that joke?
I actually spared myself and never watched it. I felt like it was going to be too depressing, and I never went.
I tried too hard, so hard to like it. Oh God, that was a rough experience.
Just based off the trailer, though, they also had the same thing of Jay and Silent Bob, where they look the same except for just older, which of course is how life works. But I mean, it's just kind of weird to see, you know.
You know, again, to bring up that buddy of mine, Vincent, the one who I was saying could be good on this podcast. He one of the problems he had with Dumb and Dumber 2 is that in the first Dumb and Dumber, they're in the real world, so them being dumb like really is an offense to the world, which is funny. But in Dumb and Dumber 2, the whole world is dumb and cartoony, so they don't really stick out as much. And that he faulted the movie for that.
They're also really mean-spirited in the sequel.
They're pretty mean-spirited in the first one too. I mean, let's be fair.
I feel like they're a little bit more ignorant. Like they don't really understand what they're doing, whereas like they're really like kind of going out of their way to be assholes in the second one.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and also Vincent, he said Austin Powers suffered from the same thing, that like the first one's funny because he's in our world, but then it gets dumb. But I disagree because Goldmember to me is gold.
Yeah, people didn't like Goldmember. I liked Goldmember. I'm with you on that. Well, what do you got for your next one, Joe?
Okay, so this is it's I don't know how this is gonna go necessarily, but Creed, the Rocky wannabe.
Okay.
So sticking with the reboot, you know, obviously the reboot theme, where Creed is, you know, just a reboot of Rocky, and then using the device that they talk about in the film in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, where they talk about like your children, like, you know what I mean, like your kids are kind of a reboot of yourself, and then this whole movie's supposed to be like you know, Kevin Smith's daughter is kind of like the new Jay, you know, with a new Silent Bob, you know, taking the best parts of yourself and blah blah blah. But Creed, much like Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, I think suffers from the fact that the kids suck. Like like Creed, I know I'm in a minority on this because a lot of people really love that movie. I hated Creed. And it wasn't because it was a bad movie. It's I mean, the filmmaking is fine, but that character sucks. He is a rich, privileged, spoiled brat who wants to beat up people, who gives up a good job, a great home to go beat the shit out of people because of his sense of pride. And then he moves into a cool loft, immediately falls in love with a super hot DJ, and then gets a title shot just for being an asshole. And then when Rocky confesses to him that he has cancer, his response is, "How could you do this to me?" He's just a selfish piece of shit, you know? And Rocky, the original Rocky, the beauty of Rocky is that he doesn't want to fight. He just can't do anything else. Like that's like the tragedy to Rocky. And like the character of Adrian, he sees beauty where other people didn't. And he doesn't aspire to like for the world to know his name. He just wants to provide a good life for her. That's a real underdog. And I hated Creed because they were trying to get me to root for this Creed kid. And much like in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, Jay, kind of like what you were saying about Dumb and Dumber, how in the original, like Dumb and Dumber, they're ignorant. You know what I mean? So like all the offenses that Jay causes are usually like accidental and or with good intention toward his friends, like he's trying to like mess up LaForce to help Brody or something like that. But this one, Harley Quinn, she's a bitch. She's like mean and she's like needy and violent and rude. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't like this character. I don't she
So she's a millennial.
well, you know,
I
I
mean,
don't
it's
I don't
supposed to
like to
reflect life.
I don't like to generalize in that way because I think that, but like you can tell that that girl was raised in Hollywood and that, Jay was raised in New Jersey. That's for sure.
That's a good point right there.
And and yeah, so like hey, I'm all for, give it to the kid. That's a great idea. That's fine. That's fun. Like, yeah, I would, yeah, a new mini Jay and Silent Bob, like female Jay and Silent Bob, sure. But not these two. They suck.
Wow. I think Joe just broke my soul.
Yeah, I loved Creed as well, Adam. But I do think you make a really good point, though, Joe. I really do, especially because of how much I did not like Kevin Smith's daughter in this movie. I just don't like the character at all. I don't like how mean she seems to be. It's like, how are you supposed to root for her in any way?
Right. I was thinking a lot of that Aladdin movie that just came out, the Guy Ritchie
Ugh.
one.
Oh
And
boy.
it wasn't good, but one thing I liked about it was that Jasmine, is the way she's portrayed in the film is a woman trying to like, claim her place and like who's been looked over, you know what I mean? Like which is a very popular theme right now, especially in movies. But like she was a great character. The movie's not so good, but she was a great character. And I was like, it's great. This is you can break through to a mainstream audience with this, to people who, who need to hear this message, quote unquote. This is accessible to them. And then you jump to Harley Quinn and like, it's just another like, you know, how is that really doing anything for women or for millennials, as you put it, when she's just she's a knife wielding bitch. You know what I mean? Like anger is not appealing.
But no, but she's supposed to be, that she's gone, 18 years with this missing piece in her life. Um, and she's lashed out at society and she's acting out because she never had that father figure. So the more that Jay has been in her life as the movie progresses, she calms down a bit. I don't see that as such a terrible character trait. And this is also a Kevin Smith movie. Everything's exaggerated.
Yeah, but I mean, Clerks was a Kevin Smith movie. Mallrats is a Kevin Smith movie. Um, Linda Fiorentino's character, for God's sake, in Dogma is a great fucking character because she's been abandoned by a husband because she couldn't bear his child. She feels abandoned by God. She's completely alone too. She has nobody that she can turn to either. I don't hate Bethany because
Well,
Bethany.
that's true, but how are you going to compare the character work in Dogma is some of Kevin Smith's best work,
And
and
it was
we
his
are
first
talking about
script.
it.
That's how I can compare
But
it because we're talking 30 years down the line and he's writing poorly now. Like that's not okay.
you're also talking about, yeah, essentially a Cheech and Chong movie. That's what these Jay and Silent Bob spin-off movies are. They're essentially just long-winded pop culture Cheech and Chong movies. They're not really supposed to be taken that seriously.
I think that's a disservice to what he evolved to as a filmmaker. Like even if he started out like thinking that that's how his movies were with something like Mallrats, by the time you get to Clerks 2, the last View Askew film, you see real poignancy, real purpose, and he's utilizing the foundation that he built of in his youth to like tell stories and to push into the future and to inspire us to move on into the future. And I'm sorry, but I don't see a regression as an okay thing. Like
I'm not saying this is regression. I'm just saying he knows what the audience is for Jay and Silent Bob. And no, this is not Clerks 2. It's not as smart as Clerks 2. It's not as interesting as Clerks 2. The character work is not as good. But the purposes of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is that, these are just kind of essentially stoner comedies. So it's not a regression. He's just playing to what he thinks that little part of his View Askew universe is.
but you don't think that he's striving for some kind of poignancy in it?
I think if he was striving for poignancy, he would probably strive to do something more original than keep going back to View Askew.
Hmm.
Well, I don't know. His most poignant film, arguably from his perspective, is Clerks 2.
Which is true, but look at every other movie he branched out to try and make, which was kind of nothing was ever that great afterwards. Cop Out,
I love
uh,
Cop
Ze-
Out.
you are definitely in the minority of that one.
Halfway through that movie on opening night, I went to the midnight screening. Halfway through, I walked out, not because it was bad, but because I loved it so much. I didn't want to see it without my father. And I actually drove from Tallahassee to Jacksonville the next morning so that I could go see it with my father.
That's a beautiful story.
It's a true story.
It's a good story. Unfortunately, I can't say that's a good movie. What Red State? Red State's fine, but it's not as smart or as interesting as some of his other movies.
The first half is. As soon as John Goodman shows up, it goes to shit. I think it proves that Kevin Smith should write what he knows, which is horny teenagers and religion. By the time you get to the cop stuff, it's like, yeah, you've seen a bunch of Law and Order. I get it.
Yeah, but you know what? If he does some original characters, take out the Jay and Silent Bob stuff, maybe lean more towards Jersey Girl because that had none of that stuff, and he would be doing better.
I don't think that he's interested in making movies anymore, and that's okay. He doesn't have to.
I think, just to one last point on this, I think it just kind of speaks to how half-baked the idea is. Like anything related to the story of this movie, I think they just wanted to make a Jay and Silent Bob movie. And then along the way, maybe had the idea, oh, what if he has a kid? And oh, what if this? And oh, what if that? And they just didn't really spend enough time really kind of coming up with what that would mean and why it would be. And so they just end up with just, I don't know, just let's make you funny and kind of, mean to Jay all the time. And that's kind of the extent of the character until she starts to grow a little bit towards the end.
So you're going to yell for the first half and cry for the second half. Reboot.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I don't know if they had the Q&A or whatever it was beforehand where they give a speech and kind of talk about the genesis of the movie, where basically Kevin Smith says that there are moments of this movie that were taken from the original Clerks 3 script and Mallrats 2. I think that's a big problem because it does seem like there's so many different ideas taken probably from those scripts that he just kind of filled in the blanks afterwards.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was working on Hollow Ian, I told him, I was like, "Yo, I got an idea for Clerks 3. What if Veronica pops back up? Dante hasn't seen her in over 20 years, and she's like, "Yo, I had a kid, and it's your kid, and this is your kid, and the kid's like a real piece of shit, like he's an asshole, but like Dante has to give him a job because he's his kid, so he's like the new clerk." But then, like as the movie goes on, Dante starts to suspect that what if the kid is Randall's actually, and like maybe I pitched that idea to him. Just saying.
What about the dead guy in the bathroom? How could it have not been his kid?
Caitlin.
Oh, Veronica. Sorry.
Yeah,
Caitlin, Bray, and Veronica. Sorry.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Just saying. I pitched that to him.
I love it. I love that Joe got this movie made.
What's really cool is I got to shoot with him at a convenience store on that movie, and he came up to me afterward. And at the snack table, he said, "Hey, you were just a clerk in a Kevin Smith movie." And then he walked away, and I was like, "Fuck."
Hey, that's pretty sweet. That's pretty fucking sweet.
Now, I do have to ask before we did anybody else find that Operation Predator editor was hilarious?
Oh, the how she steals the van?
Yes.
Not really.
I thought it was hilarious.
I liked.
I've already forgotten it.
Yeah, I liked in the end credits when he was like, turned out he actually wasn't a predator. He was just doing that to save her. Like that was funny. I was like, why isn't that in the movie? And then Jay beats
the little
shit out of
deleted
him.
scene. Yeah,
that's funny. Like,
or the two kids that were outside of Clerks 2 are actually in the marijuana business now.
That was good too.
That was pretty good. $200, man. Put that shit in my hand.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
For me, the funniest joke in the whole movie is where Jay says to her at the end, he's like, "Yeah, we put gum in the locks every night to piss him off." I was like, "That's really good."
That actually got the biggest laugh.
For my screening too. My screening too.
Yeah, it's the best joke in the movie. It's he's still got it. He just doesn't. He's not interested in it. That's what that proved.
Well, I'm going to go with another puzzle piece, and we will continue on with this. And Kevin Smith was even saying it himself. I saw in some interview thing, but The Force Awakens, which, of course, sequel, reboot, he called it a requel at one point, kind of blurring the lines and bringing back characters and continuing the story, but it's also kind of doing what the old one did over again for a new generation. And I think it's a pretty clear-cut inspiration, especially for, someone like Kevin Smith.
I guess we could go back and also throw in the reboot of Halloween.
Even though
we probably shouldn't bring this up again.
Yeah, let's not. I'm trying to think of any reboot that has really worked. You know what I mean? I know that for me, I kind of feel like the one that really started this trend on this scale. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm forgetting one. Is Tron Legacy?
Hmm.
But I liked Tron Legacy, and what's an interesting thing about Tron, though, is that Tron, while a cult hit, was not a very successful movie, not a popular movie, you know what I mean?
Right.
More people knew about it than liked it, so I felt like there was room for a reboot to, like, you know? But, like, it's a tough order when you're trying to reboot something that people already love, you
And
know?
it's still so hard to define. I mean, even with that great, definition they try to, throw out there in this movie, it's still, I think most people just, have no idea how to fully define the difference.
Well, what does it say that we're still doing this shit where, like, when it's a sequel, time for a sequel, especially after a few years, we throw a kid in the mix, you know what I mean? Like, I know that everybody's talking about the new Ghostbusters movie and how stoked they are. I'm like, doesn't it just sound awful? Like, kid
It does sound
Ghostbusters?
kind of
What the
awful.
fuck? You
It
know?
does it does sound terrible, but you know what? I will give Jason Reitman the benefit of the doubt because almost
I will
all of
too.
his movies have been great.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I agree.
Interesting statement. Got it.
Thank you for smoking is brilliant.
I'm a big fan of I actually I hate that I keep name dropping. I know him a little bit, but last time I saw him at a grocery store, I was like, yeah, I really appreciate what you do, like, because he's trying, and I like where his perspective is, and I just don't think that he's ever hit a home run. I loved Labor Day, and I loved Men, Women, and Children, um, but I at least appreciate the kinds of movies he's making that he wants to make.
Mm.
For sure. And I think he's a great choice to direct the Ghostbusters sequel for many reasons, and some of them very obvious. But again, just throwing a kid in the mix has always been a negative. Like, yeah, oh man, remember how good the Mummy Returns was because there was a kid? Oh wait, you know what I mean?
To be fair, none of those Mummy movies were very good.
Oh, the first one's great. Come
Oh,
on.
Scorpion King is great. I like all three of them. I don't give a shit. They're fine.
They're watchable. You know, it's
I
not
mean,
as bad as Tom Cruise's Abomination, but very few things are.
That's true.
I just can't wait till Matrix 4 comes out next year and it's Neo and Trinity's kid. Like, what the fuck?
That's probably what's going to happen too.
Don't curse it. Like, I regret saying it out loud.
Yeah,
But
now
technically, is that a
you've willed it
reboot or
into
just a
existence.
sequel? I mean, what's the line anymore? Because technically, Jane Silent Bob isn't really a reboot; it's technically a sequel.
I'll be amazed if the movie isn't called Matrix Reboot because, like, the Matrix itself has to reboot after it, like, after the one. Like, so fuck. Like, I love those
Wait!
Matrix.
Matrix rebooted.
There you go.
Don't.
It actually
Oh my
works with
God.
Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolutions, Matrix Rebooted.
I
Oh my
know.
God.
I just want
You
to
heard
throw.
it here first.
Please don't listen. Don't take these ideas. These are bad ideas. I actually really love the Matrix sequels very much. So I'm already offended by the fact that they're coming back. You know what I mean? It's just like, no, it ended so perfectly.
They just have to though. They can't help themselves. But Adam, what do you got for your next one?
I will use, since I'd mentioned it earlier, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke.
Mm.
You know what? It's that whole subgenre of just stoner buddy comedies.
Sure.
You could use Cheech and Chong. You know what? You could use How High, Redman, and Method Man, since that was already referenced in the movie. You know what? I'll just go with Cheech and Chong because they were the first.
When he says that that's his favorite movie of all time, How High, and they're like, How High, the movie we're in. Um,
Yeah.
it reminded me, they hosted like one of those MTV award shows or something. And I remember this. They asked P. Diddy, like, as he was walking down the red carpet, they're like, "What's your favorite movie of all time?" And he was like, "Scarface." And then fucking Redman turns to the camera and goes, "Motherfucker should have said How High."
That rules. I wondered going into this movie whether or not my sense of humor would have changed too much at this point to appreciate it, and I still found myself cracking up through the screening of the original and this one at all the dumb shit. And so I guess I just I'm always gonna love dumb stoner movies.
Even in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, with all of its throwbacks and callbacks, it still created its own new moments, like, and lines, like you were saying, and it actually has big set pieces. This one,
Sure.
what's the biggest set piece we get? Fucking Kevin Smith accidentally eggplants a movie employee. Fred, whatever his name is, tater tots him in a
Mhm.
drive-through? What is this? You know?
It's
I'm
fucking
trying to think of
around.
that. What's that great in Jane Silent Bob Strike Back when Silent Bob gets stuck in the manhole and then he yanks him through and he goes, "Just like Winnie the Pooh."
Yeah,
Like, I
I
just
love that.
You know what? I will always think of the of Silent Bob, typing on his phone and it's just like one random emoji. Like that I thought was hilarious. And that I'll actually
I think that
remember joke.
yeah, that it's funny, but, like, again, it's just so poorly edited that, like, it's like cut, 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 then the reveal. It is a funny joke and premise, and I'm sure that eggplant gag on paper was brilliant. It just his lack of, like I if you told me that they did no pre-production on this movie, I'd believe you.
That's what I'm saying. It
I agree.
seems like they just wanted to get on set and make a movie and like bring back all these characters and that's it. And they didn't have much planned ahead of time.
Great, then make Clerks again. Like, I'm not even joking. Make Clerks 3 instead of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot because it's such a big fucking movie that you need to plan things like this out. Clerks, you know what I mean? Like, it's small, it's contained, and it's a formula that has proven true twice.
Hmm.
And why couldn't she been Dante's daughter? That's such a better idea.
I think we have to blame what's his face who plays Randall Graves because he's the one who turned down Clerks 3 originally. But don't worry, you're getting your wish. They are going to make Clerks 3 now.
He turned it down because the script sucked. I am in such support of him, and I just like I was with Bill Murray. If you guys have ever read the Ghostbusters 3 script that he, famously ripped in half and mailed back to them, it is
Right.
so
Yeah.
shockingly I've read it, and it is so shockingly and offensively bad, and not just bad, but insulting to Bill Murray. The whole script was very bitter toward Bankman, the character, but really obviously Bill Murray. And I'm so sick of people giving him shit. It's like, no, they gave him shit. And he said, I refuse.
In Bill
And
Murray's
Mm.
defense, there's no reason to do Ghostbusters 20 years later. If you're going to do it 5 years after Ghostbusters 2, that's fine. 10 years after Ghostbusters 2, fine. Nobody needs to do sequels 20 years later like that.
I think a Ghostbusters show makes more sense. That's not even none of them are in it, and like Ghostbusters have just become a thing, and it's in every small town. Make another like blue collar, urban. Like keep it blue collar, keep it urban, but move it to fucking Chicago or Texas or whatever. You know what I mean?
And,
And do
and
your
no
own
and no kids. No Sigourney Weaver kids.
no kids. And
No
like
more kids.
Well, Joe, you said that you're out of pieces now?
yeah, I
Okay.
I feel like I feel bad. I feel like it turned the puzzle piece show into just like a.
That's what
Into a
happens when we
movie
have these
wars.
3-person episodes. They always go in all kinds of directions. We did it with Chad and Ryan, and those always go all over the place, and these go all over the place, but they're fun. But I only have one more, and then we'll see if Adam has any more. And that it's kind of like a puzzle piece bucket. It's Judd Apatow films, especially like This Is 40 and Knocked Up and Super Bad, but these ones that have to deal with growing up and friendships, going what direction they're going to go and how they're going to change as as these people get older. And I think in a lot of ways, of course, the rise of Judd Apatow as a director, and really as a major producer came after anyway. So I'm sure he was inspired by a lot of what Kevin Smith was already doing himself. But his stuff became so hugely popular, and then went ahead and inspired a lot of what Kevin Smith's been doing over the years when he's actually sticking to movies with characters and stories and not just the weird shit.
Yeah, Apatow changed the comedy landscape. I can remember when Clerks 2 came out, in every advertisement, they were using that critical blip where it said the funniest movie since the 40-year-old virgin.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I
But
remember,
funnier.
I remember even then thinking like that doesn't sound like a good idea because I know Kevin Smith's style, and if you go expecting a 40-year-old virgin, you're gonna be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
Kevin Smith's a little bit more in your face, whereas Apatow's a little more subtle.
well, Kevin Smith is also more structured. Like, that's the thing, like, Kevin Smith was a classically like, he wrote kind of classically, like, there's a structure to his scenes, to his comedy, if not to the overall narrative, at least to the scenes themselves, the way they're constructed, you know what I mean? They weren't loosey-goosey and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
they were clear-cut scenes, and, it was fascinating to see Seth Rogen in Kevin Smith's film because that was kind of a test in a way of Seth Rogen to see if he's just Seth Rogen or if he can act, you know what I mean? And,
Mm-hmm.
while it's a similar character type, that kind of comedy is a totally different beast, and I thought he did
Did
really great.
You guys didn't mention that one while we've been talking about all the other movies along the way. Do you guys like Zack and Mary?
It's got some good parts to it. I probably like the first half more than I do the second half.
I think it's a great idea with great characters, with great performances and great dynamics, but I think that the movie like is actually pretty stupid, but the likability of the idea, the characters, their dynamics and the performances, the actors playing them make it a really good movie. If
Hmm.
that makes sense. Like the actual movie is really dumb, like beyond dumb. Like even with them having a fucking oil drum on fire in their house with no smoke. Like that's stupid. But like but that scene, you love it so much because those two characters and those performances and their chemistry is just so wonderful.
Hmm. Yeah, I liked it a lot back when it came out. I haven't seen it since then though. But yeah, why don't we move on? Adam, do you have any other pieces?
I do. I was going to use Ted 2 pretty much just for the end, but instead I will go with T2 Train Spotting. When you think of a movie about characters looking back on their past and looking forward to the future, I find that very similar with this. Also, how you were talking about Judd Apatow movies, where people are thinking about their past and how they're growing and growing up and what to do towards the future. Very
Mm.
similar in tone with that, although without drug addicts.
I never saw is there a
Well,
kid in that
actually,
one?
no. No, there's a kid in the first Train Spotting, but that kid died.
Right. Well, I was just thinking when you said T2, I thought you were gonna say Terminator 2, and I was like, yet another fucking kind of reboot with a goddamn kid that sucks. You know.
Ooh.
Kids just suck, basically, except for that dead
Wait.
kid.
Are we
He
talking?
never
Are we
got a
talking about
chance.
T2? We talking about T2 sucking? Or are you talking about the newest Terminator reboot that does have a kid in it?
I'm talking about
Also,
well, first of all, just for the record, no, I don't like Terminator 2. But when I said sucked, I wasn't talking about Terminator 2, the movie. I was talking about the character John Connor.
Right, I figured that's what
right.
you were talking about. I mean, I love Terminator 2, but I could totally see where you would, call him a shitty kid.
When I break down those two Terminator movies, I think when you break it down into pieces, who's a more compelling lead, Sarah Connor or John Connor, right? Definitely Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor.
And like also
Mhm.
like as just a character, who's a more interesting character to follow as like the sidekick backup? Arnold is the Terminator or Kyle Reese. There's an actual dynamic between Kyle Reese. There's a character there. So for me, Kyle Reese, you know, and again, as far as structure is concerned, one of them is tight and to the point and really interesting and compartmentalized. The other one is like long-winded and goofy and overblown to me.
Well, Adam, do you have any others left?
No.
Okay.
Unless we want to just strip mine every Kevin Smith movie because it's just an influence.
Well, maybe we'll do a little bit of that in the in the closing thoughts. But why don't we do the finished puzzle, and then we'll get into any last thoughts we have on this movie. We talked about Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Scream 4, Snake Eyes, Deadpool, Dumb and Dumber 2, Creed, The Force Awakens, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, Judd Apatow movies, and T2 Train Spotting. This has been a wild branching conversation of movies to talk about, but
That list
I
of puzzle
expected no
pieces
less.
that list of puzzle pieces is more funny, interesting, exciting, and thoughtful than the entirety of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to decide if I like this movie more or less after talking about it. I think I'm kind of leaning towards less, but I did have fun with it, and I did laugh a lot. And like I said, when watching, it was my first time seeing Strikes Back in, God, like a decade, I'd say. And it really did hold up for me, and I was kind of a little bit surprised. I just thought I was going to be like, this is just too dumb for me. And I ended up loving that. And for the most part, I laughed quite a bit through this one as well.
I went in with such low expectations for this movie
Right.
that, you
Right.
know what, if I could be entertained for 90 minutes, I'll probably be happy. And I was more or less entertained for 90 minutes. And I thought the ending was, towards the end, it got very sweet. But yes,
Hmm.
it's a stupid stoner movie to just, kick back and enjoy.
I feel like this whole movie was the Scooby Doo scene from the last one, just spread out for a full movie. Like, it's just like
Jesus.
dumb little silly idea,
And I'm pretty sure we
But
could have edited out the whole courtroom scene because none of that really worked except for Justin Long.
The part where he walks from the one to the next was funny. in that scene where he walks from their desk.
Yeah.
You know, nothing worked in the movie. Honestly, like nothing worked beyond, oh, that's a funny idea to me, at least.
Right.
I don't know, man. Like
Brody's monologue
it's
and his love for the Marvel movies. I mean, it was like the speech in the other movie, but still funny.
see, I my favorite part of the Brody scene was his mention of the squeakquel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not everybody got that, but that was funny.
Well, what's really funny is that that's the only one that I mean, he's in it for like 2 minutes. He's not in that one. They gave it to that kid who played Chuck. He took over for Dave in that one because Dave, like, gets injured. Um, I'm a big fan of those Chipmunk movies. I like them a lot.
Was Jason Lee at all in what was it, Cruise Chip?
Yeah, Chipwrecked. Nice try.
Chipwrecked.
Yeah, he's
So chippery over there.
well, no, he's a major component of all 3 of the others. He's like a main character. In that one, though, he just isn't. It's funny, my brother and I saw that opening day. The first one, we loved it. When the next one came out, we saw it opening day, and I hated it so much I didn't see the third one. And then when the fourth one was coming out, my friend wanted to go see it, and I was like, "All right, I guess I gotta catch up." So I watched the third one, and I was like, "Ah, saga saved." Like, oh,
Wait, there's 4 of them?
hell yeah.
Oh my
Road Chip.
God. Wow, that's amazing. Speaking of, things that worked with this movie, this is the second movie in a row that the 3 of us are doing together on the show that had like an irregular release, with Three from Hell getting the Fathom Events thing doing so well, then they added another one, and then this getting the Fathom Events, and then this whole road show thing. I mean, do you think that we're gonna see this more often?
I hope not. Only because look, right now everybody's struggling to find what is the solution to
Right.
theaters versus streaming, to big budget blockbusters versus, more quote unquote personal movies, whatever. Um, this and Three from Hell have both been wildly successful, but why? Because you're literally dealing with people who have a
Mhm.
niche fan base, right? Like, you know what I mean? Rob Zombie is very popular. Kevin Smith is very popular, at least popular enough to draw in $10
Yeah.
million. You know what I mean? Um, and I don't think that this model will work in a way that will help the industry. So I don't want to see
Right.
them focusing too much on it, because, like, then it becomes, how do you become one of these people? Like, oh, what's the portal to becoming a person like that? Either you get famous on the internet, which I don't think that you can really learn the language of cinema making content for the internet. Um, or you have to, like, make a big, blockbuster movie, which also there's so many moving pieces to that. If you're a filmmaker, it's really hard to, like, learn how to make
Mhm.
films on a set like that. You know what I mean? Um, so I hope not. Um, I know that, like, the other problem right now is movies like The Irishman, you know what I mean? Where everyone's like, I remember that article that's like, it's too good for Netflix. Just for the record, saw it last night. It's not too good for Netflix.
Most Netflix
But
movies aren't too good for
this
Netflix.
but nah, like, I don't know that I agree with that. I think that
I'm
there
a
have been a
hater.
handful of well, I think that there have been a handful of really excellent. I mean, Dolomite Is My Name is undeniably one of
I
the
loved it.
not only one of the best movies of the year, but one of the most audience friendly, communal. It's very
Totally
communal. You know what I
agree.
mean? That's a movie for the theater. So I just don't want to see this. Like, I don't want to see people test this out as a solution, because to me, it's not a solution. You have to already be established. And, you know, if this is a way for the greats that we've admired in our generation to kind of fizzle out, I'm not interested in seeing that either.
Mm.
I don't feel that this is a solution, but for certain directors that do have a niche audience, that isn't going to draw in, the Marvel, Star Wars types of audiences. You know what? Instead of it going straight to streaming, it's nice the fact that you could go out for one night only or 2 nights and go see the new movie by this director that has a small audience, and you know that you're pretty much just surrounded by the fans.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I definitely appreciate, how much I complain about movies going straight to streaming. And if it's something I want to see, I'll take a one night event, if that's what it's going to take.
I am jaded living in LA. We get
Yeah,
it.
you get to see it all. And one other thing on like a practical level, I don't like this whole strategy because I can't use my AMC A list or a Regal Unlimited for it. They
Right,
make
fuckers.
they make it not eligible because it's a special
They knew
event.
that new Kanye movie coming out on
Yep,
Friday.
yep. I had to pay for that shit.
Yeah, $20. I mean, I'll gladly pay it, but damn it. Kanye needs my money, and I'm very okay with that.
why he's got to pay for another butt implant or a butt lift for Kim?
If that's what it takes for him to live a life of comfort to keep creating the things that he's creating, then by all means, I will gladly give him my $20
We
in
got to make him
exchange for
happy.
more content.
Well, I think that about does it for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
I thought you were going to say, I think that about does it for Joe Black's career.
Yeah. I think I've got what I need for my little tape that I'm going to make right now. Speaking of having Joe say things, I don't know for sure when the next time I'm going to have you on the podcast is, Joe. And I just made a joke in our Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group about asking any directors I have on the show what they think about whether or not Marvel movies are cinema, since that seems to be the thing that every piece of media has to ask a director. What is cinema? And so I'm going to ask you, is Marvel cinema?
Well, cinema. I like the use of the word cinema. No, I think that Marvel is. I think that Marvel. You could argue Marvel is movies.
Mm-hmm.
They are movies. That's for sure. But my big problem. I've said this before. I don't think I've said it on the podcast, but I've said it before that to me, what happened about 40 years ago when Spielberg really took hold of the industry, Spielberg style movies and George Lucas. Movies used to be made for adults and kids could go see them too.
Mm-hmm.
And that language has changed and now every movie is made for kids and adults can see them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the real problem. I think that like our summer horror blockbuster movies are Insidious movies when they used to be, I'll even give Spielberg Jaws. You know what I mean? Movies are all aimed at young people these days. And the industry is focused on keeping people young because they love it when they can sell an action figure to a 45-year-old.
Right.
So they want to keep us thinking young. They want to keep us pacified. And so they're going to make things like that because it's in their best interest. So are Marvel movies cinema? No. Are Marvel movies? Absolutely. A lot of hard work goes into them and a lot of thought goes into them. But I think a lot of thought goes more into the mechanics of them. And I think what Scorsese is talking about, what cinema is the reason why you're making something,
Mm-hmm.
the purpose in what you're doing. And when you come at a movie from that perspective, I think that's kind of what steers it in that direction that we call cinema. So yes, I agree that Marvel movies are not cinema, but I do think that they are valid because they are movies.
And some of them are great, but I agree.
Yeah, there's
They're not cinema.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel that this is a bit of it's a silly conversation because you know what, there is a place in this world for both. There's a place in this world for the thinking man's film or cinema, and you know what, there is a place for the escapist entertainment or comic book movies.
But the problem that Scorsese is addressing is that there's not room anymore.
Right.
Like physically, there's not room anymore. But also in dealing with those extremes, the quote unquote what you said, thinking man's movie versus escapists. I don't believe in escapist cinema. I don't think that's a real thing. I think that when we that's another trigger word that we've been that they've polluted in our brains. We don't go to anything to escape. We go to something to have an experience. It's not escaping. It's literally engaging in a way that we're not engaging with normally. That's not escape. That's an active thing. But to say like a quote unquote thinking man's movie, I mean, God, look at something like Gangs of New York. Look at The Aviator. Look at Hugo. These are Scorsese movies. These aren't thinking man movies. These are crowd pleasers. These are epics. These are comic books. These are, you know what I mean? They're not what we think of as thinking man cinema, but they're made by somebody who is thinking. I feel like artists especially should be the thinkers. Like that's the point. They've thought about this and they've thought about it in they've created abstract perspective to better explain their thought. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that there physically is not room for both right now, both in the industry and literally in people's schedule during the day. To put on your shoes, drive to AMC and watch the fucking movie.
And you got to compete with TV now with how, amazing TV has become.
Okay, I'll only accept that because Righteous Gemstones is so good.
That's right, absolutely. But no, and I agree. I don't watch that much TV, but I just know that that's the general consensus.
I mean, original programming on HBO has been strong for 30 years.
Sure.
Yes, do I think with the streaming services there's way more content than there was before? Absolutely. But you know what? You have your people that want to see this movie, a Marvel movie. You have your people who want to see The Irishman or the new Scorsese. You know what? Not everybody loves Scorsese movies. You know what?
Sure.
It's a thing. Not everybody thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And Francis Ford Coppola, the most recent person to throw his hat into the mix, hasn't really made a good movie in in a while.
But right, right. No, no, no. Here's the thing. It's not about whether or not what they do is a great film in the end. You talk about television being like this. They've been creating good content for the last 30 years on HBO. So check this out. Um, I write a lot of movies, and a lot of people tell me that my movies would work as plays, or they see my movies and like that would work as a play because you've got these long scenes, a lot of dialogue. Here's the thing: the language of a play and its association to the audience is completely different than a movie. So, like, same thing with television. Like, people love television, right? But the level of commitment and the actual type of interaction that an audience is having with television is totally different than the experience that you have going to a movie theater. And I don't mean like, oh, sense of community, blah, blah. I literally mean like the way that you make a film is totally different than
Mm.
the way that television is made. And no offense to audiences, it's not their job to understand the differences. And no offense to audiences, it's not their job to quote unquote know what they want. It's the filmmaker's job to create something that is accessible and appealing. And they're gonna fail. I mean, Scorsese, I think he's one of the greatest living directors, if not the greatest, but I didn't like The Irishman at all. You know what I mean? I hated Wolf of Wall Street. But but that's not the problem is that they're letting audiences dictate. And I don't think that that's it's obviously great for people who want to make money. Um, and I don't even necessarily mean that as a negative, but that's not great for artists. That's not great for creators.
Mhm.
I mean, if you were going to allow the masses to dictate, your blockbuster, that unfortunately is the choice of. I'm probably going to aim at Disney because it's usually one of their movies from their 5 studios that they own. So, but the people who are still making movies for adults, whether it be Scorsese, whether it be Steven Soderbergh, I mean, they're still doing what they want to do, and their audience is still there. That's the point.
But they're dying off. Who are the new people? Who are the new people that are making these kinds of movies that are achieving the same level as the kinds of things that Scorsese was able to? Scorsese is able to do what he does because of the success of a movie like Taxi Driver, and I think it was actually Noah Baumbach, and Wes Anderson who said, "Think about it, Taxi Driver would be a Netflix movie these days at
Mhm.
best." You know what I mean? Like, it really would, because those kinds of movies aren't getting made and released and distributed on that level anymore.
I'd be complaining
It
like crazy that I couldn't see it or that it may be open for one weekend if I was lucky.
Yeah, and but again, gosh, like, you look at any Western, there's a reason why Westerns died off, and Westerns died off because television took over and people weren't going to the movies as much, and a Western doesn't work on TV. It doesn't. Like the language of a Western and not just the vast, beautiful shots of, like, the Old West, but the way that, like, you have to film a close-up, the way that you have to stage 2 men standing apart from each other. You have to feel that distance for it to resonate in the way that it resonate that it's meant to. So, again, these are the things that audiences aren't thinking about, and movie theaters aren't gonna think about it because why does a movie theater exist? A movie theater exists because somebody had the idea to open a movie theater to make money. So the person who created AMC, their whole thing is about making money through this medium. So they're only focused on keeping their jobs, and that's a good thing. And especially when they have thousands of theaters or hundreds of theaters, now they have to maintain the jobs of thousands of people. So that's what they're focused on. So I don't fault movie theaters for it.
Mhm.
I don't really fault anybody for it. Like that's the silly thing, like this blame game that people are trying to play. That's not I don't think that that's helpful. I think that it needs to fall on the fucking creators who when they get to make a fucking Marvel movie, that every single time without fail they make a fucking Winter Soldier. That they think about why it is what it is. You know what I mean? And focus on that and focus on helping people. The only people I think are to blame are the creators because the directors are smarter when it comes to creating something than the fucking studio. That's just the truth of it because it's their job. So
Interesting.
filmmakers need to step up, not theaters, not streaming services, not the fucking movie industry. Filmmakers need to step up. George Carlin, who I'm a fan of him as an actor, not necessarily a fan of him as a comedian, but he very famously said that the more people that follow something, the more that's probably wrong with it. And I feel like that's kind of a negative, like almost too negative for my taste, but the idea behind that is very true. Um, I find that to be very, very true, and I think that the easier something is to consume, the more that people will gravitate toward it because life is so hard. And yes, an audience's job is not to support the artistic endeavors of an artist. Like that's not people's job in life. And yes, most people do go to a movie with the thought of, oh, I'm going to get away from the real world for an hour and a half. But in that hour and a half, not only do you as a filmmaker have the opportunity to present them with something that they could never experience in their life, but you have a chance to communicate with them, impart something to them, an idea at the very least, not an answer, but a solution of how they could live their life better and how things could be better for others. And the fact that you're getting to speak to 20 million people all at the same time and you don't use that opportunity to actually say anything, to me, that's loony.
So did Kevin Smith do that with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Reboot?
Not with Reboot, but God damn it if he didn't do that with Clerks. God damn it if he didn't do that with Chasing Amy, even though I don't think that movie's very good. But Dogma, Jersey Girl, like he does do that kind of stuff. He can do that kind of stuff, and he can do it in a way that is accessible, that is entertaining, that doesn't weigh down on a person's mind, that doesn't make them quote unquote think about it for days and days and days. He can do that. So for me to see a filmmaker like that become completely disinterested with making movies like that, well, fuck, that sucks.
Mm.
But, this movie, at the very least, what I can say as a positive is it showed those little bursts of his ability to do that. And that's the first time and that's totally missing from the last couple of his movies, as much as I love Tusk. So the fact that he did that, I'm really happy for, but like it's more heartbreaking because he enjoyed it instead of working. I don't know. And I'm so sorry about that. Even if you don't put that part in the podcast, I'd like to hear that back, somehow, because it helps me. I literally just like blacked out
Yeah.
for the last 8 minutes.
It's like Will Ferrell
I
and
love
Old School.
it.
It's like, what just
just
happened?
happened?
What happened?
Hey, I'm Josh Bell.
I'm Jason Harris. Hey, Josh, we're friends in real life, but we're also co-hosts on this new podcast called
Awesome Movie Year, where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies and do a deep dive looking at movies including the Best Picture winner, the biggest movie at the box office, future cult classics, and more.
including the biggest flop. And this season, we're doing 1994. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. That could be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. We're all over the web as well at Awesome Movie Year on all the socials and awesomemovieyear.com. So please like us, subscribe, and if you do like us, give us a 5-star rating because we love you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Definitely go seek it out and make sure you watch it if you haven't yet. We didn't really get too bad into spoilers, a couple here and there, but we always get into spoilers. It don't matter on this show. But I want to thank Joe Black and Adam Wells for joining me. We had some great stories in there. We definitely went on some tangents. And actually, if you stick around after the end of the show, there's one more roughly 5-minute long tangent that I'm going to include. I cut out quite a bit just to keep things, God, we're over an hour, which is already a long episode, but I wanted to keep it, somewhat on point with talking about Jay and Silent Bob. So I did cut out quite a bit of little tangents and going in all different directions, but there is a little segment on Terminator and action movies that I wanted to keep in here. So it's coming up after the song that we play. But before we get to that, I want to remind you, make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join the Facebook group Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. You can support us on Patreon, which is where this episode will be until the movie comes out on VOD, which is when we're going to release this episode most likely. And so that means that you are a Patreon subscriber if you're hearing this anytime in the month of October or November. But if it's after that, then maybe you're hearing it as a regular episode. I don't know. We'll figure out when to put this thing up. Who knows? I want to thank you all for the support, though. this has been an incredible month of growth here at Piecing It Together. We have had so many new listeners and so many new co-hosts on the show. I mean, this is the second time having Joe and Adam on together, but we've had so many new people on the show lately, and it's just so cool having all these new people on. I do want to thank them all so much, and thank you for listening. So let's leave you with a piece of music like we always do. I wanted to find something, kind of stonerish to go with Jay and Silent Bob. And there's a rap group that I actually used to produce a long time ago here in Las Vegas called Q-Mecca Trajik. And they had a song called Smoke It Up. And, to fit with the whole Afro Man because I got high, that kind of a vibe. I figured I'd play this track for you guys. So this is from a long time ago, like 15 years or something like that, but it's called Smoke It Up, and enjoy it. And it has never been released. I don't know if this stuff will ever get released, but it's sitting on my computer along with about 20 other tracks from this group. So maybe we'll put it out one of these days. But enjoy it, and we'll be back next week with more Piecing It Together.
Damn, nigga. Where that weed at? Roll that up. I got that shit right here, huh? Roll that shit up. Damn, man. Niggas just got me smoking on this draw. Y'all niggas got me high as a motherfucking weed and shit. Y'all niggas get this weed, y'all must have laced this shit or something. Niggas so blow. Shit. You know I be a dope cat on the mic if I got on something like this. Going up 6 months or something. Dang, nigga. I'm feeling like this shit got me high as a mug. It's a super weed. Got a nigga rapping at a super speed. Had it fired up. With that flame shit, maintain it, the brain cutting, and we just gon' tie it up. Got them holes in the back, roll the jaw to be fat, get a crack a light, hit it from the back, then we just gon' light it up, that lime stuff. GQ got the G-Tac, we can go ahead and cheat that, but it's beef fat. If you hit that, bully teeth back, we can put it in kneecaps. Damn, that must be that dro. Got the box full of optimo, we gon' stop and blow, get half in the proper holes, 2 hit, don't stop the flow, don't stop to go, you get killed, so watch them hoes. After that, then we bail, dog, we be the bad thing, what I tell y'all, get a nigga blow 6 times in one day. Hell no. And the nigga can roll with the mob. Catch me holding a Glock, so I'll OT out when the clock turn. For the clock turn, shots leaving hella holes in your shots. On my flow when I'm not. If I'm not, let me find out. Eyes red with a 9 out. Hot shot, tip his mind out. Put the bullets deep in his gut, tip his stomach line out. Am I high now? Damn, they had you on that super weed. Tragic.
We just pulled as the farm boys who smoke like this. Ain't no nigga in the world would control like this. If you got it back, then roll it up. I'm trying to get close to my brain, don't hold it up, smoke it up. We just pulled as the farm boys who smoke like this. Ain't no nigga in the world would control like this. If you got it back, then roll it up. I'm trying to get close to my brain, don't hold it up, smoke it up.
So we smoking, toking and choking, blessing mics that's open. Up in the studio, get so high, refer to us as the dope man. Nigga, we hoping to get some more, man. Trying to give a nigga suntan, Ray-Ban on my eyes, don't never wanna come down from a dreamland. Whole room for the steam, man. That's how it's seen, man. When you hot box with the weed, man. Never fuck with seas, man. This cat to the left, me screaming. About to hit him in his head like Billy B, man. We creeping, people start beeping. Mom's in the next room sleeping, tweaking like a Mohican. So we start eating, and after that we start beating.
We just pulled as the farm boys who smoke like this. Ain't no nigga in the world would control like this. If you got it back, then roll it up. I'm trying to get close to my brain, don't hold it up, smoke it up. We just pulled as the farm boys who smoke like this. Ain't no nigga in the world would control like this. If you got it back, then roll it up. I'm trying to get close to my brain, don't hold it up, smoke it up.
Shit, man, I'm high as a motherfucker. My eyes all red and shit. What y'all put in my weed, nigga?
Sure, nigga.
Let me do it for myself.
That's fucked up.
Nigga bust back, hold that, where the weed at? Smoke until you gone. Holes all up in your trunk with that fire to get blown. Really feeling fat, hot box in the lack with 2 pounds of Swisher Sweets, 4 pounds of yellow seeds, 4 pounds of Doja weed. In the middle of the yard, we don't need no barn to smoke along. Inhale, with a high mo, wanna be alone in the back of the dirty farm. I'm just dazed in a circle of chronic fear. Go 12 rounds like Holyfield. Got everything from black and miles to them golden seals. You can tell I'm high from blowing this weed.
Damn, nigga, can I hit your blunt?
No, bitch, you out of your tree. We just pulled as the farm boys who smoke like this. Ain't no nigga in the world would control like this.
I was high as a motherfucker.
Roll it up. I'm trying to get close to my brain, don't hold it up, smoke it up. We just pulled as the farm boys who smoke like this. Ain't no nigga in the world would control like this. If you got it back, then roll it up. I'm trying to get close to my brain, don't hold it up, smoke it up.
and all points west.
Second, since Terminator Genesis or Genesis or whatever it's called is the only one I haven't seen and refuse to see, was there a kid in it?
No, but I will say that I've for some ungodly reason I've seen all the Terminator movies, and I thought that 5 was definitely better than 4. I saw it because I was working at the Chinese theater. I saw 4 because McG directed it, and I love McG. Wasn't a good movie at all. Then I saw 5 because I was working at the Chinese theater, and it came out while I was working there, and I just watched it while I was at work. And I was like, well, it's miscast, but that's the worst I could say about it. That's also coming from somebody who doesn't give a shit about Terminator. I like Terminator 3. There we go.
Yeah, I do too, and I actually I agree. The most recent Terminator, I certainly like it better than Salvation, and I put it like pretty much right on par with 3.
See, I actually like Salvation, not because it's a good movie, but I thought the idea was so great in concept that only a director like McG can ruin it.
See, no. 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 Because here's the thing.
Oh boy,
the problems with that movie are not McG's fault. The cast was forced on him. The throwbacks were forced on him. The giant Transformer-sized Terminator was forced on him. Those are all studio decisions. McG did his fucking job. Like I'll stand up for McG. That movie looks great. It has inventive camera work. It's like the directing is solid. But like when you're forced with Sam Worthington, when you're forced with the naked CGI Arnold throwing people around, when you're forced to do a stupid Transformer Terminator that doesn't make any sense, that's not your fault.
I won't blame him for Sam Worthington because nobody could get a good performance out of Sam Worthington, but you can't get a good performance out of Christian Bale.
Christian Bale was fine in the movie. And so was Anton Yelchin.
All I did was talk like this the entire movie. That's not a great.
He's in a war. He's a general.
I'm getting flashbacks right now.
The best thing
tried to kill my mother, you son of a. Like that's the only movie I could think of Christian Bale is like he is horrible in this movie.
Yeah,
I could think of a lot more, but I do think of that rant that Christian Bale went on from the set of that was so famous. And the best part of the whole rant when he's yelling is when he screams like McG, tell the guy, and you hear McG in the background go, "I didn't see him."
Which is funny because something similar happened recently where Joaquin Phoenix is yelling at the cinematographer during a shoot on the Joker.
Both really mediocre movies, and I could see why method actors who really give a shit about what they're doing are just like, you're making me do what? Fuck you.
I'm not going to wax the Joker like it's the greatest movie of all time, but I enjoyed fair parts of it.
I liked
there was some good character work.
Interesting though, like Terminator 3, that's a reboot that doesn't have kids.
Okay, John Connor's older.
He's a full grown man.
He's got mustache.
Yeah, but T3 is really just, except for the end, is a very watered down version of T2.
Mm-hmm.
You think?
Very watered down version.
I just liked how like clear it was, how concise it was, and I thought that the twist at the end was really strong. And again, the Terminator movies are just so like, and I don't mean this as negative, they're dumb. They're dumb ideas. Like, and when you make one that's 2.5 fucking hours long, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, so you get me in and out in 100 minutes, then we're good. But like, I don't want to watch a dumb movie for 2.5 hours.
I could watch dumb action for 2.5 hours. Give me Bad Boys 2.
There you go.
Now you're talking Bay. Now you're talking my language.
Yeah, give me The Rock. I mean, except for the Transformers movie, put on a Michael Bay movie for 2 hours and shit just blows up at the screen, and I'm happy.
Which Transformers movie?
I don't particularly like any of. I mean, if I have to pick one that I do like the most, it would be 3.
Yes, that's the best one. Good call. I mean,
yes.
I like them all except for 2, but 3. Yeah. Sorry, David. We're going out there.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna pick and choose what I want and keep it in episodes. So.
Oh, no.
Edit out Transformers conversation. Keep in new Matrix title.
Keep in Joe singing.
Yeah. Fuck
yes.
You. I love how much like fuel you have to just completely take down any like credibility I have as a film analysis or analyst or critic. It's just like pull up the part where he talks about how great Michael Bay is. Pull up the part where he talks about McG being a genius. Put in the part where he talks about how shitty Terminator 2 is.
Right.
You know what? I think the problem that people don't seem to understand with Michael Bay is he does one thing, but he does it very well.
I
He
think
makes exciting action sequences.
I think the reason
Sure.
why people, I think a problem when it comes to how people perceive Michael Bay is that they don't appreciate why he does things the way he does things. They're just hung up.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I've said this before. I feel most people who talk about how bad Michael Bay is don't actually have that opinion. They just think that they're supposed to say that.
Same thing with Adam Sandler. Just throwing that out there.